program where a topic of national interest gets our attention, and we will begin by bringing you up to date with news that made headlines during the week. We're going to be starting with the federal government assuring Nigerians that they would soon have access to 24 hours electricity supply. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu, who stated this in Abuja during inauguration of 2-block housing, 5 training workshop, and 104-room hostel at the National Power Training Institute of Nigeria, noted that Nigeria is on the road to sustainability in the power sector. Also, health authorities in Adamawa State confirmed an outbreak of Burula ulcer in Malabo district for foreign local government area, sparking public health concerns across the community. The outbreak caused by Lactobacterium ulceris has already affected several residents and prompted an emergency response from Adamawa State Primary Healthcare Development Agency. A 3-story building under construction collapsed on Friday night, September 12, at Borno State, Alagomeji, Yaba, Lagos. The National Emergency Management Authority said in a post on its X handle on Saturday. NEMA stated that the incident occurred at 8:30 p.m., leaving several people trapped under the rubble. And now to stories that get our attention today. The federal government directed management of Dangote Refinery and Petrochemical Company and the Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, Nupeng, to fully implement the September 9 agreement on workers' rights to join a union of their choice. Also, the National Association of Resident Doctors suspended its 5-day warning strike 2 days after it began. The association also gave the federal government an additional 2 weeks ultimatum to meet its demands. These and many more get our attention today. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you to today's episode of Firecrackers. My name is Iribami Salako, and I have with me here in the studio Dr. Yemi Omodele, a law practitioner. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Good afternoon, listeners and viewers at home. We are here for the business as usual.
Definitely. And then we have Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst, joining us live from Abuja. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us at this time. Okay, all right, before we get started, let us first of all go on this break, and that is looking at the importance of federal government's intervention on price of food and lowering cost of food price in Nigeria. Let us go see that, and when we return, we will be looking at the Nupeng and Dangote refinery dispute. To stay with us. We are glad to have you back if you're just joining us. This is Firecrackers, and we are just about to get started with the topic of the day, and that is Nupeng and Dangote refinery dispute over allowing workers to join union. And now with me in the studio, Dr. Yemi Omodele, a law practitioner. Now, the federal government is insisting that Dangote refinery and Nupeng, that they should stop the conflict, and then Dangote refinery should let their drivers join union, which is according to the September 9 deal that they had signed formally. What do you make of this situation of workers being allowed to join union and Nupeng raising alarm that they should be allowed to join, despite the fact that from indications, it seems as if Dangote refinery is not so much of a fan of having their drivers join the union?
The issue of unionism is a constitutional right, which every Nigerian is expected to enjoy. Now, parties are bound by the agreement they willingly entered into and executed. The Nupeng and the said refinery body, having reached a compromise on agreement to some extent, and the document executed, both of them are bound by the said document. And the document definitely becomes an instrument for interpretation. Now, for a party to have signed an agreement and few hours after the execution, turn around and say, no, that amounts to a breach, which could be subjected to judicial interpretation. So what I'm saying in essence is that if having executed the document, and one of the parties now says is no longer bound by that agreement, he should approach the necessary body for intervention rather than taking laws into its hand. Now, the document claim signed becomes effective right from the date it was signed. Then in order to have transparency and to have fairness to workers and to be able to take care of the workers' responsibility and some challenges, that is why the act of unionism association came into being. Nupeng body takes care of its members. And being a member of that body, any challenge that might have been countered by the member will definitely be taken up or taken over by the body with a view to address the problem. And I believe that is why the said body is much interested in the welfare of its members, which is good and fine. Now, a situation whereby the said refinery body will now turn to what I call a dictator in terms of affairs and conditions of service of the workers will not be too fair for those workers. So complying with what the federal government chaired or coordinated is not out of place. And I would rather advise that in order to have fairness, the party should work in line with what they've agreed on, rather than embarking on what I call voyage of discovery, rather than embarking on what I call that will amount to exercise in futility, that will make Nigerians to suffer unnecessarily, that will make the commuters to be going on the road. It is not fair. So then you see there are ways of doing things. You don't, in the midst of 100, it is somehow strange for somebody to claim that it's more intelligent than the 99. You see, in the midst of 100, I can say the 100 they are intelligent. But for somebody to stand up there or to think that it's more intelligent than the 99, that is not correct at all. So what I'm saying in essence is that if 10 persons sit down and have a discussion, deliberation on a particular issue, each person comes with an idea. And having cross-fertilized the idea, they reach a definite conclusion. That conclusion becomes a joint effort. So the joint effort having been reached, surely everybody in such deliberation is fully aware and cannot say he didn't contribute, he has contributed. So they've agreed. We call it pacta sunt servanda. Parties are bound by the agreement they willingly signed. You cannot just say you pull out that way. It is not done.
Okay.
So I advise the other party or the party who is saying this and that should have a rethink and further maybe cross-fertilize the idea with the like-minded persons working for them in order to get the best advice in respect of such
Okay, all
issue.
right. Thank you so much, sir. And now to Jide Ojo, who is joining us virtually from Abuja. What do you make of this conflict going on between Dangote Refinery and Nupeng? Do you think that Nupeng truly, in the truest sense, is actually after the welfare of drivers, or they are worried that if they are calling for strike and then they are grounding activities, that will not affect workers of Dangote Refinery? What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Yobami. Good afternoon, everyone. I think this is a delicate issue to analyze. I know Nupeng and Pengasan and the Nigeria labor unions have been in existence for decades. And I do know that this is not the first time Dangote is also doing business. We know he has thousands of tankers that he used to truck its products across the continent, if not across the country, if not across the continent. So why is this one significant? Dangote started oil production since 2023 May, or maybe early last year, let's give it that, because as at the time it was commissioned, it was not fully operational. So it took about 8 months for it to be operational. So since last year, well, what I am worried about is that while Pengasan or Nupeng may be right to want their members to unionize, they have not done enough for Nigerians to have faith in them. They've not done enough because despite the fact that their members, Dangote truck drivers, Itatu, I want to believe have been members of Nupeng. We have seen time and again reckless driving from Dangote drivers, which has led to fatalities. I think the recent one was Tina's younger sister. Now that is exposing Dangote to huge libels, suits. Is it manslaughter or whatever? Aside from that, I think Nupeng, while I agree the terms of agreement and MOU should be sacrosanct and implemented. We should not forget that it was the Directorate of State Services, DSS, that brokered the peace deal last Wednesday. But I'm wondering, where is Nupeng? Did we hear Nupeng's voice when our 4 refineries suddenly became comatose after spending billions of dollars for turnaround maintenance? Nupeng members are the ones that are smuggling products across the borders to other African countries. And we have not had them calling their members to order. We have not had them disciplining their members. So it's leading the public to believe that the motive of Nupeng is purely pecuniary. Because if you look at all the tankers in the haulage industry in Nigeria, particularly oil and gas haulage, they will have sticker of Nupeng by the door side of the tankers. So we learned that every truck that is committed or that is transporting fuel across this country have to pay a certain amount to Nupeng, aside from the check-off dues that members of the Nupeng also pay. So they are making millions from their members, but I haven't seen them also taking up responsibility to help in curbing the economic sabotage that their members have been alleged to have been committing, i.e. smuggling of petroleum products across the border, and even the issue of the comatose Nigerian refineries. It will have been very good to hear them castigating, coming out, naming names of their members that they have disciplined or that they have dragged to court for reckless driving and for all other atrocities. So while I fully agree that they should implement Dangote should allow his workers to unionize for whatever it's worth, we also must see Nupeng justifying their existence. Because when I go back in history, I remember the role Nupeng particularly played in getting former President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua to rescind the sale of the Warri and Port Harcourt refineries that were sold by Obasanjo administration in the twilight of his tenure, to rescind it from after the exit of Obasanjo. Those refineries were sold to Blue Star Consortium that was led by Dangote. Now, over 15 years after the rescinding that decision, where are we with the state of play of our refineries? So sometimes it's not all the time that these union members, just for the sake of few thousands of them, saying that this must not happen, we must not sell this, we must do this. For over 30 years that our oil and gas sector has been comatose, members of Nupeng were getting salaries and getting promotion in those refineries. Anyway, this is not the main issue for discussion today. Suffice to say, let there be peace. Let Dangote honor the terms of agreement, and if he feels that the situation is not favorable to him, he can approach the National Industrial Court for arbitration or a kind of mediation in the matter.
Well, thank you so much for that, sir. So now to Dr. Modele, one of the things that people were talking about, if you look at the public space, is that why is Nupeng being particular about Dangote Refinery? Why are they so particular about them forming a union? So what about other beverage companies that we have in Nigeria who are not under a union and they have their drivers driving everywhere? Like, if you are to advocate for one, shouldn't you advocate for all? And then shouldn't you be worried about, because the term that Nupeng used was introduction of modern-day slavery. So if you're worried about Dangote Refinery doing that, why did you not also tailor that same energy and attention to other sectors of the economy, non-oil producing sectors of the economy too, that their workers, their truck drivers are not belonging to a union?
You see, let me clarify an issue. Fuel consumption in Nigeria is higher than other consumable goods or items. And the number of drivers, or maybe petrol tanker, or diesel, kerosene, and the rest, or gas, is also of higher number. You can't compare those products with toothpaste, with tissue paper, with chewing stick, with toothpick. So those goods are also being conveyed by trucks from south to west, or west to north, north to east. But in terms of percentage, it is low. Now, in that wise, to have substantial number of drivers that will form union of those concerned bodies is a bit, the chance is a bit narrow. Because when you want to form union, there must be consensus, there must be financial, as in relation to registration, publication, and the rest. Now, if that is not done, you cannot talk of unionism there. Now, look at it. If you have a toothpaste company in Delta State, maybe you have one in Kogi State. Now, the one in Delta State has maybe 3 drivers. The one in Kogi State maybe 4 drivers. To bring them together is a bit, the chance is a bit dicey. But when you talk of petroleum products, we know where the refineries are. We know where the depots are. We know who are the importers. We know who are the exporters. Then you talk of filling stations. They are in all nooks and crannies in this country. So I think that must have informed the formation of that union. Then when you talk of safety, you know those products are highly inflammable. Definitely it's of concern to persons, because once there is accident here and there is bound to be casualties. In order to guard against that, the union also has 1 or 2 rules to play. Now, the Nupeng having concern about the drivers to drive the trucks concerning or the one Dangote imported or blah, 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 everything may be as a result of what I called recognition. Because if you look at it from one angle, you discover that if Nupeng is in existence years ago, now another refinery comes in producing massively and now having drivers not belonging to the member of Nupeng, it may affect their recognition. Then in another way, it will also make what I call their presence not to be felt in that company. I think those are the areas they are trying to guide against. Then aside from that, see, to begin an issue is very easy. When it gets to a midway, issues may arise. Now, if somebody is employed to drive truck from here to Maiduguri and is well paid, good and fine, but any time such a driver encounters a problem, who fights for him? Who will defend his interests? I think that is one of the reasons why unions are being formed. When you have a challenge, your union takes it up, they are at your back, you are a financial member, you are a regular member. They take it up and defend you. And where possible or where necessary, they give you one or two financial assistance. I think that is the area where they are very relevant. But in Shutamba, you just recruit some set of persons running to maybe thousands to be working, and they are just working. There is no one voice. Then in that wise, I can say that there may not be promotion, there may not be confirmation. Then the person can be laid off anytime, any day. That is it. So, and that is what we call non-job security. So that means the person who has the right to hire has the right to fire. But the firing must be in the what? Must be justified. So when there is no union to protect such employees, that employee, I call them, they are just, they are walking without a sheep, without a shepherd, which is not fair. So I think looking at, you see, when you look into our laws, the law that makes provision for unionism, association, organization, the people, the draftsmen of those laws, they don't just wake up in their bed and start writing something. They think deeply. It took them several months before reaching conclusion in respect of the provisions of those laws. They've looked at the pros and cons of it, what may happen in the next 30 years, what may happen in the next 100 years, and put it down, so that it will protect what is present and in future. And that is why there is room for amendment. Because the more every day things get developed, and then aside from that, we are changing technologically, we are changing educationally, we are changing medically, and the rest. So as we are changing, our law also will also be advancing. That is why there's provision for amendment. Yes. Therefore, the issue of unionism is not the issue of self-centeredness. It is the issue of issue of concern. You feel the impact. You feel your members. Your members, you have one or two things to do. Your members, they are there to grace the occasion. What a joy.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Dr. Modele. But before we continue, let us go on to this commercial break. And when we come back, we'll still be discussing the dispute between Dangote Refinery and Nupeng. To stay with us. So much for staying with us. If you're just joining us, this is Firecrackers, and we are discussing the disputes between Dangote Refinery and Nupeng. And now to Jide Ojo. So, because Dr. Amodele is talking about the advantages of being in the union, that it's for protection of the union workers. But now let us talk about the advantages Nigerians themselves are to derive from this. Because we know that for these unions, whenever they want to get something from the federal government or from employers, they are always declaring strike. And that would ground productivity, that would ground the economy for that particular time that they're declaring strike. But if these workers, if they are not among any union, they are not obliged to go on strike. They would continue to work, and Nigerians will still be deriving some services from these employers. But is it truly, or is it in the favor of Nigerians for these workers to join union? Or is it that we will definitely be suffering whenever these workers are having grievances, either with the federal government or with the employer?
Well, I think Nupeng should thank God that this is not a military hunter. Maybe it would have been easier for them. It would have been easy for them, rather, to do what they are trying to do with Dangote, because we all knew how the military will have handled situations like this. But under the civil rule, you don't necessarily have to clamp down, arrest, and detain without due process. So sometimes I think they are being overzealous, particularly when they threaten to shut down the system. Interest of just a handful of Nigerians cannot superintend and supersede the interest of the collective. And let me shock you. I wrote in my column recently, sometimes ago, I think was it over the 70,000 minimum. I think I was researching into issue around casualization, and I saw a statement by someone that 75% of Nigerian workforce are casualized. They are casualized across board. You see banking institutions, most of the people working in the bank are not permanent staff. They are not staff. They are just, like hired hands. Then many factories, manufacturing concerns and all of that. What is the union doing about that? Because when you are a casual staff, you can be dismissed. You are just hired and fired at random. So this union have not done enough, even for the so-called members that they want to tell us that they are protecting. And all the billions they've collected in check-off dues and all of that, how have they spent it? Beyond the fact that many of their leaders have multiple estates across the country, if not across the globe. But it's not my money, so I won't go into that. It's their members that can query how their check-off dues have been spent or is being spent. But suffice to say that sometimes resorting to extreme measures, as Nupeng was threatening to do, in fact, I saw a footage where they were even blocking the entrance of Dangote Refinery. And I think they were overreaching themselves by trying to do that. There is a national industrial court that they could have gone to obtain an injunction to compel, even if it's order of mandamus, compel the Nupeng, compel Dangote Refinery to respect court decision. But resorting to self-help by blocking access to the company, by picketing and all of that, may be counterproductive for the collective interest. So I think sometimes they need to weigh the balance. All these issues of resorting to strike, we know that petrol and allied products are inelastic demands. Inelastic demands in the sense that they do not have substitute in the real sense of it. You cannot but use those products. You cannot but, and the moment there is a strike, there will be artificial scarcity, there will be black market thriving. So the product you are supposed to buy for less than 1,000 naira, you may end up buying it for 2,000 or more. And that's the flip side of it, because at the end of the day, you are fighting the cost of maybe 4,000 people, and yet you are inconveniencing the entire country. Because assuming without considering that they shut down the depots as they started doing last week Tuesday, if they have succeeded, it will have resulted in nationwide scarcity. And that energy security is very, very important for every country. The moment that shutdown happens, that the tankers can no longer lift fuel from the depots or from Dangote, the entire country will crumble. And that's why I applaud the Directorate of State Security for brokering peace after the initial meeting between the Dangote and the Nupeng facilitated by the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Labor and Employment or something. So by and large, I think it's just to kind of find a balance. Unionism is not bad in itself, but I think sometimes resorting to uncivilized measures can be counterproductive. As you have already said, I do not belong to the oil and gas sector, and many Nigerians are not working in that sector. So, if because you have an issue with a Dangote, which is a private company, private entity, you now decide to suffer the entire country. That is not fair. That is not fair. That is overreaching yourself, and it's not part of what you are supposed to do as a union. In fact, that's why sometimes when the labor unions call out people to join them in protest, people refuse to oblige. People refuse to oblige because they feel that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make economic sense. It doesn't make common sense. So they will refuse to do so. So I think the appropriate measures need to be found. If a private entity offends you, you don't have to take it upon the entire country as they were trying to do. Because even as of Friday, was it Thursday or Friday, when they said negotiation has broken down, the unionization process was supposed to last for 2 weeks. And they said, oh, Dangote has reneged after 2 days. And then the next thing, we start seeing footages on social media where they were trying to block the entrance to the. Well, it is for Dangote to have dealt with that situation. But the initial attempt to shut down all the depots across the country just because they have issues with a Dangote, which is a private entity, is a no-no for me. And they need to understand that the mood of the country is so that if you overreach yourself, Nigerians themselves can take up the fight and fight your leadership. So sometimes they need to weigh their actions. The costs are there.
Joined us virtually from Abuja. We truly appreciated your input. Thank you so much for joining us at this time. And now to Dr. Yemi Omodele. The whole, should I say the genesis of this is when Dangote wanted to import 4,000 CNG-powered trucks into Nigeria, and these are supposed to deliver straight to the retailers, which according to some unions, not Nupeng now, like Petrican and all the other unions, they are worried that this might affect their own business. But is it not to the advantage of Nigerians if the refinery is supplying straight to the retailers? Then we would not have to spend much money in purchasing fuel. In the long run, is it not to the advantage of Nigerians?
Well, on the one hand, it is beneficial to Nigerians because there may be a drop in the price. But the major and most important thing is this. It is a business strategy for the company mentioned. It's a strategy in the sense that the said company wants a situation whereby it will take charge of production and distribution. That is the meaning. Which will definitely draw many customers to the said company. Because the persons to be supplied, we say, I don't need to pay for truck. I don't need to pay for movement of the product to the site or to the station. Definitely it will make things convenient for them. And people or persons who have been patronizing the importers, because I read it that some persons are still importing fuel to this country.
Yes.
Those ones may be discouraged from patronizing the importers. They will now be patronizing the company mentioned. So that is why I call it business strategy. And to be sincere, it's a perfect business strategy. But when you talk of Nigeria economy, it may, on the one hand, has a defect. If the price goes down, good and fine, which Nigerians they love. They love to buy cheap things. Good. Then, what about the persons working? What about persons delivering those goods and services to them? Has their welfare been taken into consideration? What about if the trucks have issues? Maybe accident, though I'm aware insurance is there, but can insurance cover everything? Well, I doubt. Now, it may result in what we call dominance. And it will make the business to be a unitary business. And looking at it economically, it may discourage the importers from importing fuel. Because when they don't have persons patronizing them, what happens? The business goes into collapse. That is what I mean by dominance. So in that area, in order to have a perfect economy, there should be competition. Now, for instance, look at this country some years ago. When you talk of telecommunication in this country, we knew what we passed through. You may want to make phone call across the border. For the next 3-4 days, you'll be trying it. In no way. But these days, if Mr. A doesn't satisfy you, you go for what? For Mr. B. If B mess up, you go for Mr. C. If C, you go for Mr. D. On and on like that. So there should be competition in order to have a perfect economy. I am not saying that we should not patronize our local production. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is this. There should be competition. I've read it in several papers that some wealthy Nigerians, they are also trying their best in bringing up one or two other producing company of the same product, which is good, which is encouraging. If those ones come up now, I think this strategy may be one way or the other be affected. So let us look at how competition will shape our economy and make our economy to be perfect internationally and globally. They will recognize our economy. In a situation whereby it will be only Mr. O, that is not good. Look at it. In Nigeria in 1960, 70, 80, 90, then early 2000, we know the number of universities in Nigeria. We know the number of colleges of education, polytechnics in Nigeria. When you buy the JAMB brochure, then you look at it, you make a choice. You have what I call, as at then, you have what we call limited choice. But now look at what happened in Nigeria in terms of our educational sector. Several universities. If government university mess up, you go for private. If private mess up, you go for state. If state up, you go for the federal one. Perfect. So there is competition. And now if you look at the performances of the university graduates these days, you see that there is competition. Now you see XYZ University, so first class. DG University, so first class. DD Clinical University, so 2-1. Good and perfect. But in those days, before you can see first class, let's be sincere. Before you can see first class in set of graduates in a particular university or polytechnic or NC or whatever, you may see one. In a 3 set, 4 set, you may not even see single one. But you know what brought about it? It's the competition. Each university is ready to deliver. The lecturers are ready to work. So if such a thing comes to our economy, there's nothing bad about it. Okay, look at our banking sector. In those days, I could recall when I go to a particular bank, they will say cashier number 1, please, cashier number 2, please. These days, you can't find that in the bank again. The system has changed. You get to bank, they attend to you. You want to buy your drug. In those days, you will queue to buy a bank drug. You queue for several hours. This day doesn't happen. So let our economy, let there be competition in our economy. We will have a good and perfect economy.
I'm not saying. I want to ask your opinion about something. This is still on the Dangote Refinery. Yes, and this is on an accident that took place in Edo State.
Recently,
yes, concerning the same Dangote truck. Yes. It has been utterly debated of who should be held responsible for the accident of the young lady who sadly later lost her life. Yes. Is it the owner of the truck, which has, I think, Dangote Refinery on it? Do we hold Dangote Refinery responsible? Or is it the driver that was driving the truck that should be held responsible for that accident? Because apparently it's not the first, second, or third time such accidents will be happening along that route.
If the driver is a direct employee of the company, both of them are there to be held responsible for it. But if the driver is not a direct employee of the company, it's a different reasoning entirely. But you see, when it comes to accident, I want to say with due respect that in most cases, it is not intentional. And the intent is what is being looked at when such cases arise. If the intention is not there, that is what they call involuntary manslaughter or voluntary manslaughter. Whether voluntary or involuntary, I would rather appeal that in order for the company to be fair to the relations of the deceased, enough be done for them. I mean, in terms of compensation. So, though there is no amount of money that will be given to the family that can bring back the child or the deceased. No amount of money. But one way or the other, they should try and compensate and ensure that the needful is done. If possible, they can immortalize the deceased. That is another way of moral compensation. The needful should be done. Because if we are to go to the technical aspect of it, I can say that the law will hold the driver responsible. But in order not to go too far and to make the family to be a bit relieved, compensation from the company may be of advantage. Because if you look at the driver, only God knows the salary. Whether it's a direct employee or not direct employee, only God knows. The salary may not be up to 50,000. Is that the person you want to compensate? Now look at it. That is what I'm saying. When you are talking of all this union, somebody driving truck. Do you know how much they sell each of those trucks? It's millions. Somebody driving a truck worth 50, 80, 90 million naira with product in it loaded several millions of naira. Drive the truck from here to Maiduguri. He takes it down there on the Monday, maybe he gets to Maiduguri on a Wednesday or Thursday, and get back to Lagos maybe on Saturday or Sunday. He does that one maybe like 3 times or 4 times in a month. At the end of the month, you give him such a peanut. Is that fair? Where are we heading to? That is what I call advanced employment slavery. Let's call it spade a spade. So those are the issues. So then to some of our people who are so much interested that, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. You need to think deeply. Yes. Big name is good. But when you look underneath that big name, there are a lot of issues under it. Okay. Yes. Driving truck is somehow risky. At times when I drive on the road and I look at the faces of people driving those trucks, at times I do shake my head. I say, look at this, look at this. You know the reason why I do that? The reason is this. I look at it. Look at you, look at the truck, look at where you are driving, look at the way you are driving. Then have they been properly trained? Have they been properly tutored about how to drive safe and sound? That needs to be considered. If you have been driving what they call Korokwe in Lagos, and you now hear that there is employment in Lagos State, they call it Korokwe. That's minibus. And you now hear that there is employment of so, and you rush there. The capacity, the brain you use to drive Korokwe is different from what you used to drive 911. No. So we need to think deeply. But I know that if the unions, they want to be fair, they can organize what I call refresher courses for their members to tutor them. This is how you do something. Because experience is what? They call it is the best teacher.
Definitely. All right. So before we quickly go, let's quickly take Jide Ojo's opinion on this issue with the Dangote Refinery and accidents on highway or the road. What are your thoughts on that? Who should be held responsible? Because according to our lawyer in the building, it's a matter of direct or indirect employee. But if you are to look at it, because sadly, law does not know no morality. But if you are to look at it beyond that, what are your thoughts on
it? In this situation, I cannot be a judge. When accident happens, there are always a rationale behind it. Was the driver reckless? Was he under influence? Is he found to be on drug, or is the alcohol content in his body that could make him to misbehave, or is it the victim of the accident that was also reckless? Because we know some of us are drivers, we always pray as we drive that God just keep me safe and let nobody get me into trouble. Because sometimes you see the way people dash across the road without looking sideways to know whether there is a vehicle coming or not. So we can't all say that every accident is the blame of the driver or that is the blame of the victim. The most important thing is that that's why the law will have to mandate. The case will have to be mediated in court. Let them go and plead their case. If it is found that the driver is at fault, maybe the insurance cover can kind of give some succor to the victim or the family of the victim. But the most is that I think our not just truck drivers, all commercial drivers need to go through training and retraining. Don't say you've been driving for long. We know all over the country on our roads, major accidents, mass accidents do happen that claim lives. We pray that we will not be victims, or that we will also not be the cause of anybody's death. But I think vigilance, eternal vigilance, is the price of liberty. It's becoming unbecoming for Dangote drivers to be accused of reckless driving, and that's why the company needs to have it must take more than casual interest in proper training of its drivers, to be sure that they are well trained and that they are not under undue pressure. The fear of ember months being that drivers are usually very reckless this season. They want to make money that they have not made since the beginning of the year. So a lot of reckless driving. And then you don't also want to, we must also talk about the elements, the weather conditions, where, it may be raining. When it's raining, the floor is slippery, or that if it's Harmattan season, there will be Harmattan days, you may not see the front. And that's why it's also very important that commuters and people, pedestrians, must always be very circumspect when they want to cross the road, because we've seen some people also are in the habit of, recklessly wanting to dash across the road. Even where the government has provided barricades and provided pedestrian bridge, they will refuse to take pedestrian bridge and rather want to dash across like squirrel. And when a driver crushes or hits them, the blame will be on the driver, not on those who have refused to heed the signs that they are not to cross the road at that point. So
Right. Thank you
a
so
lot
much,
happens
Jujodo.
when you
I'm so
talk
sorry
about.
to cut short the flow of your thoughts, but we've run out of time. Really, we thank you so much for your contribution. It has really been enlightening. It has been educational. It has been informative. Thank you so much for being here today with us on Firecrackers. Okay, all right. Many thanks to Dr. Yemi Omodele, law practitioner, who joined us today in our studios for Firecrackers. We truly appreciate you for being here with us.
Thank you, presenter. God bless everybody.
All right, so this is where we'll be drawing the curtains close on today's episode of Firecrackers. My name is Iribami Salako. We thank you so much for staying with us to the very end. So until we come your way, same time, same station next week, to have a wonderful week ahead. Goodbye.